Welcome back to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs, and our conversation concludes now with Sami Naswari from FlickrHappy.com. That's spelled Flickr, the word happy.com. Now, last time I discussed find out what relative of mine loves the movie Midnight Madness and how old he is. My dad's wife's great-grandson is 9 years old, and he loves 80s movies, and he loves Midnight Madness. I was like, wow, this is really cool. My nephew loves Midnight Madness. This is just, music to my ears. And the thing was that before this event, I even found out about this event, I started doing a kind of a documentary, not about the film itself, but just kind of a detailed filming of the locations the movie was used. I've done two so far. I've done Johnny's Coffee Shop in Wilshire and Fairfax, and the other one, the Hollywood Tower apartment buildings. I plan to do some more as well. I've been using basically the camera on my phone, but I'm glad that I went to the event because it was getting to meet everybody and everything. But also, I found some very good information, like for instance, Johnny's Coffee Shop. The interior was not the actual coffee shop itself, but it was the Disney commissary. Because Deborah Klinger told me that the coffee shop was actually closed when they filmed, so they were only able to use the exterior shots for the coffee shop and then the interior. Because I was wondering, wait a minute, when I was looking inside there, I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember the ceiling being this tall in the movie, and that's why. But it looked pretty normal to that. I don't know if you knew the answer to this question. I forgot to ask the director this. Leon's man cave apartment, was that actually the Hollywood Tower? Was that just a set on Disney? I don't know if he could answer that question or not.
I don't know the answer to that. My guess, if I had to take a good guess, would be that it would have been very. I know they filmed live at the Bonaventure Hotel. Actually, I'll get back to that. My guess is it was filmed in a studio, that it wasn't filmed at the Hollywood Towers. And I think the same thing with the Bonaventure Hotel, that although a lot of the interiors of the Bonaventure Hotel were actually filmed on location, when they got to the actual hotel room, that wasn't filmed at the Bonaventure Hotel. That was actually filmed, I think, in a studio.
Yeah, that's right, because obviously you couldn't spray water all over the place, the fire hose. And then I don't remember ever at the Bonaventure Hotel seeing an elevator that was not a glass elevator. They were all glass elevators. That one was like an interior elevator, like your normal elevator. Like, wait a minute, I don't remember seeing an elevator like that at the Bonaventure. So, but yeah, it was. I loved everybody there. The stars all stayed afterwards to sign autographs and to take pictures. It was just such a great night. It's a night we'll not soon forget.
I'm very fortunate because everybody I've worked with so far, I did another film earlier this year. It was a blaxploitation film called Coffee, done by, so Coffee was Pam Grier's breakout role. Like Quentin Tarantino used her, Jackie Brown. She was in Foxy Brown back in the 70s. Jack Hill, who was in his 90s, flew out from Georgia to do this Q&A. But everybody I've worked with, whether it's Jack Hill, Nicholas Meyer, Virginia Madsen, the cast of Midnight Madness, everyone has been so kind, so sweet. That's big, right? Because you hear, so many horror stories sometimes about difficult people to work with. So knock on wood, I've worked with really good people. And kind of my mantra is, if you treat them well, if you make the experience enjoyable, it's if there are ever, opportunities in the future to do some more films with these people, their pleasant experience will kind of make that more probable that they'll come back and do another event, right? So that's kind of really what it's all about. We also had, if you remember, we had Maggie Roswell. Maggie Roswell, who was her first film, but now she's very famous as a Simpsons voice actor. And I don't recall like Maud Flanders and Helen Lovejoy. She does a lot of these kind of secondary characters, but she's been doing The Simpsons now for at least a couple decades or so or more, and that's what she's known for. So she was great. She came with a little framed picture of one of her characters from The Simpsons and personalized it for me and signed it, and I thought that was very sweet. A little gift from Maggie Roswell.
And then the Thompson sisters, Dr. Carol and Betsy. If you want to say hi to them, make sure they hug you because they hugged you. That was great.
They're wonderful. They made me a shirt. Yeah, they gave me a Midnight Madness shirt. Just like sweet as can be.
I think it's kind of funny. Somebody asked the question, was that laugh real? And then they just did the laugh and the audience erupted. It was just like, I couldn't believe somebody actually thought it was fake, but you never know. Sometimes people use some weird harmonizers for sound effects. But it was great. And then Garrett Wilkin, I want to see his Jimmy Buffett tribute band next time they're in town here. Then, of course, the question was not who was there, who wasn't there. It's like, wow. The only ones I could think of is David Naughton, Michael J. Fox, of course, are the only two I could think of on the top of my head that weren't there. And of course, a lot of the actors sadly have passed away, like Marvin Kaplan and John Fiedler, Loretta Tupper. In fact, Loretta Tupper, I remember seeing her in a lot of commercials, but I didn't know what her name was. I asked my dad, who usually is pretty good with classic trivia, hey, who's that old lady right there? He's like, I don't know. But I remember her in the Fruit of the Loom commercials and a bunch of other TV ads, just the cutest smile, the voice, and just, the mannerisms were like, just that's somebody you want for your grandma type of character.
Yeah. Another one of those characters who's like, like from the Hollywood legacy, right? Because David Wechter and Michael Mankin, the directors, did a great job of marrying kind of the new generation of actors with these faces from kind of older Hollywood television and films. One of those was Irene Tedrow, who was the, kind of the, I guess, the villain, quote unquote, of the piece, if you could call her that. But I remember first seeing her on an episode of Three's Company where I forgot what happened, but I remember John Ritter's character, Jack Tripper, was fake courting her, doing something, and he was telling her, what's that beautiful perfume you're wearing? And she looks at him and she says, Ben Gay. And that is, that is my memory of Irene Tedrow from TV. So, here she was in this film. It was, it was nice seeing her. It was good.
Yeah, she was also on Dennis the Menace as a regular, and then I remember she was on a mid-'80s episode of The Facts of Life as a mentor to Joe, and she also appeared on the new Leave It to Beaver in a flashback scene as Aunt Margaret. She didn't play Margaret in the original Leave It to Beaver series, but they had her playing Aunt Margaret in the flashback that they did to it was a couple years earlier, sometime in the early '80s instead of the mid '80s, but. And then, gosh, I'm trying to think who else. Just, the Bratty Kid. Like a little, the
Bratty Kid.
The Bratty Kid at the observatory. I recognized him. He played Mike Engelbert or Engler or something like that. He was the catcher in the TV version of the Bad News Bears.
Oh, all right, yeah, and I feel like, he passed away at a relatively young age.
Yeah, he was only 36. Yeah, Jay Brennan Smith was his name, and he did a lot of TV. I remember he was on an episode of Little House on the Prairie, and of course the Bad News Bears and Midnight Madness. At first I thought he was the same actor that played Mike in the movies The Bad News Bears, but it wasn't. It was actually two different actors. In the TV show. And the TV show also had a young Corey Feldman. Mina Palouse played Tanner in that version. Of course, Jack Warden played Walter Matthau's character, Buttermaker. But it only lasted about a year and a half, but I used to watch it religiously every week when it was on. Yeah,
it's interesting. They have another little kind of factoid, if you want to know about it, from Midnight Madness is, David Wechter and Michael Mankin, before the doors opened from Disney to make Midnight Madness, they made two shorts. Both of them are available on YouTube. You can go look it up.
Okay.
One of them was done in '76 called Gravity. It's very creative. And then they did a musical, which is campy in all the right ways. It's a musical called Junior High School. Mm-hmm. That was done in 1978, and it is, the tunes are catchy. I don't think people realize that David Wechter and his dad, especially his dad, Julius, were musicians. Julius Wechter wrote the tune Spanish Flea for Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Wow.
And if you don't know Spanish Flea, go on YouTube, listen to it. It's a theme you will know right away. You've heard it on a ton of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think he also helped score Midnight Madness, or they scored Midnight Madness. But they did this little short musical. I think it's It's how long is it? It's about 40 minutes long, and there's a cameo, Paula Abdul's very first appearance. She has her own song towards the beginning of the movie. I think she tries to bury it and not be associated with it. But if you want to see a young, 16-year-old Paula Abdul singing in this little short musical, go look up Junior High School by David Wechter on YouTube, and you'll see I think it's a fun 40-minute musical.
Wow. It's interesting you mentioned also the music of Midnight Madness. The theme song itself was catchy. A lot of the tunes they played throughout the film, from I Want Someone New, Someone Who's Not Afraid to Love Me. I don't know who that was, but it's a great tune, great disco song from its time. And then the song that played when Flinch took off his jacket, threw on the ground, and played chicken with that car to see whether that would stop or not. I don't even know that song is either, but that was a great tune as well.
I don't recall the song. I remember the disco song, though. That I remember because they played it a couple times. They played it at the disco when the Thompson sisters were dancing, and they played it again in the background at the arcade scene with another person we forgot to mention, Paul Rubens.
That's right.
Pee-wee Herman had one of his cameos, short cameo, and I think David Wechter and Michael Nankin, again, the directors, they saw him live somewhere, and they thought, we need to write a character for him in this film. And so they did this small part for him. He's not dressed as Pee-wee Herman, but you could very much tell it was a very Pee-wee Herman-ish type of character that he was playing.
He even had the laugh at that one moment when he took the dollar bill after that gun of tokens that was shot into Marvin's hand.
Yeah.
And then, but he, I instantly, the first time I saw Midnight Madness, I didn't know about the Pee-wee Herman character yet, but I did remember him playing Pinocchio in the Showtime version of Fairy Tale Theater. My dad said, there's Pinocchio from Fairy Tale Theater. And Carl Reiner played Geppetto in that production.
That's interesting because I had not seen that production, but I remember it's Shelley Duvall, right?
Yeah.
Who because of that, from what I remember, I think I saw him once talk about this. Shelley Duvall put him in contact with Tim Burton, or connected him with Tim Burton, and that's where he found the person who, he said, yes, this is the man who has to direct Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Because at that time he was having a hard time trying to find the right person with the, the kind of the right mindset and the right vision to kind of bring his, outlandish type of Pee-wee world to the big screen. And that was through Tim Burton, which I think was a marriage made in heaven.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I just watched it a couple months ago and forgot how great a movie it was, from the music to the adventures to just, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Great film.
And now, Midnight Madness was your most recent event. What events do you have coming up at the Frida Cinema?
So it's still a work in progress, but I have a couple things that that are kind of lined up. One of them is, I've been in talks with Don Coscarelli. If you know Don Coscarelli, who's very, was most famous for a franchise of horror films called Phantasm. But he made this sword and sorcery film in 1982 called The Beastmaster with Mark Singer. And if you've never heard of it, it's these are films again. I've never really seen in the theater. I've seen it in HBO. I think Tanya Roberts is the female lead, and what's his name? Rip Torn also plays a villain in this film. It is, it's just one of those great little kind of 1980s sword and sorcery films, trying to follow along the same vein of Conan O'Brien. Not Conan O'Brien, what am I saying? Conan the Barbarian. But
there's a movie
Conan
idea.
O'Brien in exactly.
We might have an idea, Sammy. So keep that in mind.
I've got to be careful, right? How quickly I'm talking, what I'm saying. So The Beastmaster is one of them. There's another film I'm working on trying to put together with writer-director Steve DeJarnot called Miracle Mile from 1988 with Anthony Edwards. It's kind of this, I don't want to spoil it, but it's Anthony Edwards, and it's another great little film. And then there's a film I've been working on that I've been trying to work on for 2023 and it hasn't happened yet. And this is a film I'm almost sure you haven't heard of. In 1993, there was a mockumentary that came out, very much in the vein of like, this is Spinal Tap. But in 1993, there was a mockumentary film that came out called And God Spoke. And basically the premise of this film is, and this is like before The Office, where they kind of talk to the camera. And but in this film, it's about this fictional producer and director who are kind of, they've made at the exposition, you kind of hear about how they've made a slew of these very crappy B movies, kind of sex-laden B films. And now what they want to do is they want to do a big budget adaptation of the Bible on the big screen. And of course, this film documents everything that goes wrong. It's not a religious film, and it's just a very funny movie about them trying to make this. They know nothing about the Bible, and yet here they are. They're trying to put this on the big screen. There are cameo appearances by Lou Ferrigno, Soupy Sales. Who's the Eve Plum who played Jan in the Brady Bunch? So they all play these cameo appearances, and it is a very, very funny film. So I've been talking to the director of that film, a gentleman named Arthur Borman, and the two main stars, Michael Riley and Stephen Rappaport. They all live in different parts of the world. I'll say Arthur Borman is in New York. Michael Riley is somewhere in Canada, and Stephen Rappaport moved to Sweden. So I'm trying to work with them to get them to come out to California. The big complication is that this film only exists on DVD, and it's a pretty crappy copy. It's pan and scan, and I don't want to show anything on pan and scan, right? I want to show it in widescreen, but you can't stream. Well, you can stream it, but when you stream it, it's pan and scan still. So it's in 1:3:3. So I finally was able to track down a 35 millimeter print of this film after searching nearly a year for it. It's just a matter now of the Frida. They've been in digital cinema for a while. They're getting a 35 millimeter projector installed. So I think once they install this in a month or two, this is a film I want to show, which I think is hilarious, and try to get the director and both actors to come and do a Q&A. So those are the three I'm currently working on, but I have other things I'm also trying to do. LA Story is one of my favorite films, Steve Martin, not only Steve Martin film, but just my favorite film, I think, of all time in general, 1991. I think it came out at a right moment in my life, just as I was entering college, and that film spoke to me. And so I don't think I could ever get Steve Martin, but I could certainly try to get Mick Jackson, the director of the film. 1981 Clash of the Titans, Dark City from 1999, I believe. And then there's a Milos Forman film. People remember him from some of his more popular films, but he did a great 1981 film called Ragtime with Brad Dourif, Mary Steenburgen, and that's a film I'm trying to plan screening for next year. Wow,
that's great. We got a lot of great films we're looking forward to screening there at the Frida Cinema in Santa Ana. This is the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. We're talking with Sami Naswari, and he's the proprietor of FlickrHappy.com. That's spelled Flickr, no E, FlickrHappy.com. And wow, this is going to be a great event. And Sami, is there anything you want to add before we go?
No, just, all I'll say is just, if you have an opportunity to watch these old films on the big screen, whether it's at the Frida in LA or in your hometown, wherever you are in the country, please go frequent them. Keep movie watching alive. Streaming is great, but nothing beats keeping older films alive on the big screen the way they were meant to be seen. So, support your independent theaters.
Definitely. And thank you very much for being here. Also, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thanks so much, Josh. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah to everybody out there.
And again, we've been talking with Sami Naswari. The website is FlickRHappy.com. That's FLICKR, happy.com. And until next time, this is Josh Jacobs. Keep your mind on the things above, and as you hit that open road, don't be a slut on spectator.